It's using things from the past and present to be able to look way off into the future.
Welcome to the Pro Remodeler Podcast, a show for remodeling pros. But you knew that already. I'm Dan Morrison, and today we're going to take a peek into the tech stack of Ian Schwandt, the production manager for TDS Custom Construction in Madison, Wisconsin. Ian's going to talk about what he calls the big board. The big board is a spreadsheet, but it's not just any old spreadsheet. It's a high-performance control panel built on a decade of remodeling data, tracking every project in real time. The first column is a list of current, upcoming, and potential jobs.
I have them sectioned off by their phase. I go top down because that's completion of the build part of the project. So these are the two jobs that hit substantial completion for us in 2025. Then our active production batch, these are the ones that we're working on in some respect. Contract pre-con is things that we just sold the build agreement on, and my project coordinator hasn't quite started on the purchasing of everything, writing purchase orders, that kind of stuff. Design development would be the projects that the design team has that will be the next ones that go to contract. Typically during this phase, we're doing some sort of trade partner walkthrough, and then we're also doing the final estimating for the project. Schematic design is their first phase within design, where they do 3 or 4 concepts for somebody and try to determine what the job is. And design backlog is things that we have a signed design agreement on, but we don't really know much other than that. We have a vague idea of when design can get to it, and then I take most of the data from the areas above, and I try and predict where those design backlog projects will actually show up into production and what their financial profile would be. And then if the financial profile of that basket of jobs appears to work within the forecast, that becomes part of how we look at setting the price for the project once it moves through the whole process.
It's like a construction conveyor belt. Projects move up as they evolve, and the big board helps Ian predict where they'll land and what they'll cost when they do. But it's not just a calendar, it's a modeling tool. Ian looks at each batch of jobs like a financial organism. Will it survive? And if so, will it live up to expectations? Like any tracking tool, each project has key dates. The next section of columns are financial formulas that give him a peek into how things are stacking up or slipping away.
And then I track the different financial pieces, the volume per week, and then my estimated volume per week. That's just based on the construction project. And those cells track to another tab that does a bunch of background calculations to give me the dashboard forecast.
Wait, volume per week?
That is the total expected revenue of the project divided by the hammer swinging duration of the project, which would be project start date to substantial completion. And then that gives us an idea of what the revenue volume per week produced by that project would be. It allows us to compare those projects to other similar projects. So it's like, in addition, should be X volume per week, maybe 24,000. If I run an estimate and it comes back at 17, that's my first red flag to, hey, buddy, you probably fucked something up in there. You should go back and take another look.
The big board doesn't lie, but it does use bad words sometimes. If the numbers are off, it shows you where and why. Because he stores historical data in those other tabs, his dashboard gives a pretty active understanding of what's going on. If something looks awry, he can pinpoint what may be gumming up the gears, sometimes before the project even starts.
And then I'm also tracking my different cost of goods, so the estimated material subs and other being like our equipment rentals and things that aren't a purchase but also aren't labor. Then I'm tracking subcontractor, cost of goods, material, and other independently, along with the labor number independently. And then I'm using all of that to calculate my estimated direct labor efficiency ratio, which is the how many dollars of gross profit $1 of labor spend should produce on a given project. That's another one of my estimate checks.
Direct labor efficiency ratio, DLER, dollar. Did you just make that up?
No, I stole it from an accountant named Greg Crabtree. I've read both of Greg's books multiple times, and I think it's a really good metric for companies of our size.
Labor is one of the biggest costs, so understanding the efficiency of various projects can help even things out if jobs start bouncing out of that basket of projects Ian was talking about a minute ago. You can't necessarily replace a $100,000 hole with four $25,000 projects. The labor efficiency and materials efficiencies are different on big jobs and small jobs. To fill a hole, the leadership team looks at the jobs pipeline and plays around with the metrics to refill that basket. And he's got a tab for that too.
If for some reason, say one of these jobs back here in design development, say this one here, a $400-some thousand interior remodel, if this person goes away tomorrow and I now have a $400,000 hole in my revenue, more importantly, I have about $100,000 hole in my gross profit, which my gross profit is really what's paying for the company. The revenue is just garbage numbers you talk shit about at the bar with your boys. The gross profit is what really does the work. So I would then know that, okay, that job's gone. What is that loss of $100,000 worth of gross profit going to do? And more importantly, what is it going to do to what I have to charge for everything else that we're going to sell in the year to make up as much of that as possible?
So that's how the big board helps Ian look at reality and see different paths to the same destination. Breaking down a project into more than just numbers, but ranges and ratios can offer tactical leverage in a shifting landscape.
Yeah, so that's what we do on this tab. This is where myself as the production manager, operations guy, the owner doing sales, and the director of design, we start to monkey with the dates. Specifically, we start to play with where they might land on a schedule. And then the real namesake of the big board is this large schedule view, which has all the different phases on it. But I like to look at it in terms of a construction phase. So this is then all of those projects shown on a calendar where I can then sit down with my production management team, which is my project manager, project coordinator, and my lead carpenters, and we can start to talk about, we're good through here on the projects that we're running right now, but when we get to this summer, early fall chunk, can we really do 6 projects at one time if they're these ones? When we did this exercise recently, these 2 jobs are both smaller jobs on houses that are right across the corner from each other on the same street. So I can look at that and I know John can run both those jobs at one time. And then I have 2 porch projects that again are like 2 houses down from each other that are virtually the same exact job. I can put the same guy on both of those and get some economy of scale, but it's having all of that data that gives me the ability to do that. And then the volume per week summary. This is a gross profit per day calculator that I have that I use for budgeting purposes. So in this case, I can put in a different construction revenue, add a 24% margin, and then try and figure out what my crew size would look like and give me some targets for balancing out the different cost of goods should we make the decision to go with that revenue goal. Then down here, it gives me my GP dollars per day, which is another metric that I run against the estimates, but also trying to get the right package of jobs together to generate the gross profit per day that we need.
The big board offers a dashboard view into the future, showing where they are, where they'll be, and how they're going to get there. It also provides a peek into potential potholes based on past performance.
So this is the big one. This is the dashboard that kind of sums up our expected revenue. Gives me a rolling 6 and a rolling 12 view of that. Gives me some summaries here of what the project mix looks like. The hours pipeline is good for me thinking about when and if I can hire. We hire a lot of people through Madison College that has a carpentry and remodeling program. So every May they graduate somewhere between 40 and 60 new carpenters that have 1 year of school experience. So that's something I'm working through now as to whether or not I can hire any of them. I have my 25 revenue projections. Gray line is the budget. Red line is what the pipeline is projected to generate from that stats tab that I showed you before. And then I recently added in a reconciliation line off of our P&L. So that allows me to track where our actual revenue is against both the pipeline and the budget. Same thing with the GP. The one thing that I have additionally on the GP is I have the earned gross profit number from the work in progress accounting doc that I fill out at the end of the month. And that's more of just like kind of a thing I'm interested in seeing how it tracks, because it's in kind of an arcane number within residential construction, but it's something that I know a lot of project managers in multi-million dollar commercial projects have to follow pretty closely. And then I have a labor production or a labor hours chart as well. And then I have the same thing going now for projects in 26 so that I can track and report back to the leadership team, where we're looking for a long-term view.
The big board looks back, it looks forward, and it looks all around at alternate realities, perceptions, and bullshit detection. That kind of vision tool represents a gigantic investment of time. In fact, Ian thinks he's got well over 1,000 hours invested, and that's not the kind of thing that appeals to everyone.
But I'm also the kind of person that enjoys doing this type of work, and I'm like the guy who will be sitting out on the porch having a coffee on Sunday morning and fucking around with a spreadsheet. Through my career in the field, I've worked for 15 or 16 different companies, including running my own business, and my own business included, and a couple other ones that I worked for failed in spectacular fashion. I managed to sell my way out of my business before it destroyed us financially. But I know many other people who weren't as lucky with their companies. So to me, I feel like this is a big investment in making sure that doesn't happen.
So in addition to a crystal ball, the big board is also like an insurance policy based on actual failures. It lengthens the runway, giving time to respond to those potholes. One reason the big board is such a powerful tool for Ian is the pseudo integration with their construction management software.
Being able to run this sheet accelerated in the way that it did in 24 was we switched over to JobTread, and we were on Builder Trend and Co-Construct before that, and we were pretty half-assing the execution of Co-Construct and Builder Trend.
JobTread has data built into the back end, so Ian can grab whatever he needs to update the big board. Before, he had to ask the bookkeeping people for data, which slowed down the bookkeepers, the production management, and the data flow.
This sheet is fed a lot by information that's in JobTread, and the way JobTread is set up, when a project is operating in real time, the data for that project is inside of JobTread. I can pull up Benson and I can see where we're looking at being projected margin wise. I can look at seeing how much we've collected, what our cash flow off of that project has been. I can view my original budget as it's being operated by the team. I can open up all the different bills. I can see how our labor for the project has gone on that cost code. I can see all the things that we spent right on this dashboard. So this is really the day-to-day, and the big board is using things from the past and present to be able to look way off into the future.
Setting up a big board of your own is partly mechanical and partly personal for the business. Ian's big board has a lot of design phases because they're a design build company. And that's a good place to begin a little big board of your own.
If you were a design build company like TDS, you would have to make a decision about whether or not you are going to track your design process. Or if you were going to just start with construction words where the money's at, let's focus on that. And then for me, it would be, project start date, project end date, however you quantify that, making sure that you quantify it the same for every job. And then I believe in tracking your individual cost of goods, because I think that's where you can really start to see where your estimates break down. And I would just start tracking those numbers and tracking some different milestone dates. And as you find more milestone dates that you think matter, that's where I started. I just started throwing them in and tracking them and seeing if they were worth the effort, and being quick to just get rid of things that aren't worth the effort either.
This isn't just a geeky numbers exercise to see who has the weirdest set of ratios. As Ian said earlier, he's seen a lot of companies go out of business when the economy hiccups. There's a lot riding on the leadership team to understand the numbers they're looking at.
We have 14 people and their families who have invested their livelihood in our ability to make sound decisions.
And that ability comes from investing your brain power in the future.
It's really about the investment of being able to look long term. And I truly believe that my remodeling industry has gotten lulled to sleep over the last decade and a half of really, really good times. And I don't think a lot of my peers are going to survive what's over the hill. I don't think they really even understand what's over the hill. That was really evident to me at JLC Live, the amount of people sleepwalking through running their business.
And if you're going to get good at running your business, a good place to start is helping to run someone else's business.
My interest in this is what allowed me to move up from a project developer estimator into this role.
I want to thank Ian Schwandt for walking us through the big board. Proof that systems don't have to be fancy to be powerful, as long as they're thorough, thoughtful, and ruthless about the truth. Just like Pro Remodeler. I'm Dan Morrison, and you've been listening to the Pro Remodeler Podcast, a production of Endeavor Business Media, which is a division of Endeavor B2B.